When Sony first announced Morbius in 2022, comic fans were cautiously optimistic. The character of Michael Morbius, part tragic scientist, part vampire anti-hero, had an intriguing history in Marvel Comics and connections to Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. Done right, Morbius could have been a dark, horror-inspired twist on the superhero genre. Instead, what the audiences got was one of the most mocked films in modern comic book history. The problems began with the casting. Jared Leto already had baggage in the comic book world after his infamous turn as a Joker in Suicide Squad. Many fans felt his method acting antics were more headline than performance, with stories about him mailing rats and used condoms to his co-stars. When Sony put him in the spotlight again, skepticism was immediate. Unfortunately, his portrayal of Morbius didn't win anyone over. Leto played the character so seriously, with little nuance or charisma, that it drained the film of any potential fun. Instead of being a conflicted, sympathetic figure, Morbius came across as dull and unrelatable. The film itself didn't help. The story followed a familiar formula. A sick scientist experiments on himself, gains powers, loses control, and faces a villain with the exact same skill set. The CGI-heavy fight scenes were murky, the pacing was uneven, and the dialogue often veered into unintentional comedy. Even the supposed climactic moments felt rushed, with the movie ending so abruptly it seemed like the editor fell asleep at the keyboard. And then came the internet. Instead of fading quietly, Morbius became a meme. The phrase, "It's Morbed time," a parody of the Power Rangers catchphrase, spread like wildfire. Despite never being uttered in the movie, social media turned the film into a running joke, ironically boosting its visibility while highlighting its failures. Sony even misread the meme hype and re-released Morbius in theaters, only to watch it flop again. The double failure cemented its reputation as one of the biggest embarrassments in superhero cinema. Today, Morbius lives on less as a Marvel property and more as a punchline. Jared Leto's attempt to bring gravitas to the role backfired, leaving fans with a performance that felt out of sync with both the material and the audience's expectations. Instead of a dark anti-hero, viewers got a bland vampire whose cultural impact was inspiring endless internet jokes. It's rare for a movie to bomb twice, but Morbius managed it, making Jared Leto's turn as the living vampire less of a legend and more of a warning label. Few casting choices in superhero history have felt as inevitable as Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. In fact, it wasn't just casting, it was destiny. Long before Deadpool hit theaters in 2016, Reynolds had been campaigning for the role, even telling interviewers that Wade Wilson was the character he was born to play. Fans agreed, and when it finally happened, the result was lightning in a bottle. But let's rewind a bit. Reynolds technically first played Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins Wolverine 2009, and fans were horrified. The movie inexplicably turned Deadpool, a motor-mouthed, wisecracking mercenary, into a mute, laser-eyed Frankenstein experiment. Fans called him Barakapool, after the Mortal Kombat character Baraka, and declared it one of the worst misuses of a character in comic book history. Reynolds himself hated it and openly mocked the decision for years. It looked like Deadpool would be buried forever. Then came the leak that changed everything. In 2014, test footage of Reynolds in the CGI Deadpool suit surfaced online. The clip showed Wade sitting on a bridge, sketching, then launching into gleeful violence while cracking jokes directly at the camera. Fans went wild. The demand was deafening. Fox had no choice but to greenlight the film, and when it finally arrived, Deadpool shattered expectations. Reynolds delivered exactly what fans had dreamed of. His Deadpool was crass, self-aware, violent, and hilarious. He broke the fourth wall constantly, skewering everything from Hugh Jackman to Fox's own X-Men timelines. What could have been a gimmick instead felt revolutionary, giving superhero movies a sharp comedic edge that no other franchise had matched. The R-rated tone, full of profanity, gore, and wildly inappropriate jokes, proved that audiences were more than ready for a superhero film that wasn't family-friendly. The film's success also turned Reynolds himself into a cultural icon. After a string of flops, Green Lantern anyone? Deadpool revived his career, cementing him as Hollywood's reigning smartass. He embodied the role so completely that it became impossible to separate actor from character. The marketing leaned into this, with Reynolds appearing in full costume for commercials, interviews, and even a Halloween prank with kids dressed as X-Men. Deadpool wasn't just a movie character anymore, he was a pop culture phenomenon. Financially, the gamble paid off big time. Deadpool was made on a modest $58 million budget, but raked in over $780 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing R-rated film at the time. The sequel followed in 2018 and proved it wasn't a fluke, bringing even more absurdity and heart. Yes, heart. Deadpool's romance with Vanessa gave the chaos surprising emotional depth. Most importantly, Reynolds' Deadpool gave fans ownership of the character. It was a rare moment where internet demand directly shaped Hollywood's decision-making, and the payoff couldn't have been sweeter. The fact that Deadpool is now crossing into the MCU with Deadpool 3, sharing the screen with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, feels like the ultimate victory lap. Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool isn't just good casting, it's arguably the greatest alignment of actor and character in superhero history. For every Jared Leto as Morbius, there's a Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool to remind us that sometimes Hollywood gets it spectacularly right. Iron Fist was supposed to be Marvel's next Netflix hit, joining Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage. Instead, it turned into the poster child for bad casting. The hero, Danny Rand, is meant to be a martial arts master who trained in the mystical city of Kunlun and earned his powers by defeating a dragon. On screen, Finn Jones looked more like a guy who wandered in from a yoga class. Fight scenes were clumsy and awkward, leaving critics and fans alike calling the show sloppy and uninspired. Hardly what fans expected from a character defined by combat. The problems didn't stop there. Danny Rand should have been a noble warrior trying to adjust to the modern world. Instead, the writing made him come across as whiny, entitled, and unlikable. Audiences quickly rank Iron Fist as the weakest of Marvel's Netflix lineup. Next to Daredevil's intense action and Luke Cage's cultural impact, Finn Jones stuck out like a sore thumb. Backlash was swift. Fans asked Marvel to recast the role with someone who could actually fight, and memes about Iron Fist's bad choreography flooded the internet. By the time the Defenders arrived, Iron Fist was already the least liked of the group. Daredevil carried the fights, Jessica Jones brought the snark, Luke Cage had the presence, and Danny Rand, mostly an afterthought. Marvel tried to fix things in Season 2 with better action, but it was too late. The show was cancelled in 2018 after just 2 seasons, becoming the first Netflix Marvel series to get axed. The tragedy is that in the comics, Iron Fist has been a fan favorite, especially in his team-ups with Luke Cage. That potential made the show's failure sting even more. Instead of becoming a cult hit, Finn Jones's Iron Fist is remembered as Marvel's biggest flop, proof that weak casting and rushed production can kill a superhero before he even gets started. When Chris Evans was cast as Steve Rogers in 2010, many fans rolled their eyes. To most, he was still that cocky guy from Fantastic Four. Casting him as Marvel's most straight-laced Avenger felt like asking Deadpool to run HR, but Marvel saw what audiences didn't. Beneath the smirk was an actor capable of restraint, sincerity, and a grounded morality that would define the MCU's heart. From the first Avenger onward, Evans played Steve not as a flawless soldier, but as a good man. The scrawny kid diving on a grenade before ever touching the serum set the tone. Rogers' worth came from character, not muscle. Once transformed, Evans avoided swagger and leaned into quiet resolve, making his leadership inspiring because it endured, not because it shouted. The real challenge was keeping Captain America relevant. A flag-draped patriot could have felt outdated, even corny. Evans dodged that by leaning into Steve's man-out-of-time awkwardness, giving him both humor and depth. His conflicts, standing against S.H.I.E.L.D. surveillance in The Winter Soldier or clashing with Tony Stark's pragmatism in Civil War, kept him morally complex. This wasn't blind nationalism, it was a man questioning what his ideals meant in the modern world. His relationships added more nuance, mutual respect with Natasha, fiery clashes with Stark, mentorship of Sam and Bucky. Evans showed a leader who built bonds rather than barking orders. He wasn't simply the Boy Scout, he was the glue that held the Avengers together when egos collided. The payoff came in Endgame. Evans delivered on a decade of build-up, wielding Mjolnir, leading Avengers Assemble, and finally earning the quiet life stolen from him in the 40s. Unlike Stark's sacrificial blaze, Rogers' ending was fulfillment, restoring the stones, then choosing love and peace. Few superhero castings feel this definitive. Evans didn't just play Captain America, he redefined him. Today, imagining anyone else with a shield feels impossible, and that's the ultimate success. Dark humor aside, if America could bottle Chris Evans' sincerity and sell it, Congress might finally balance the budget. When X-Men Apocalypse 2016 cast Oscar Isaac, fans expected a towering ancient mutant mastermind, equal parts prophet and extinction-level threat. Instead, they got a villain whose first impression was dominated by makeup. The heavy prosthetics and muted purplish palette flattened Isaac's expressiveness and invited the Ivan Ooze comparisons that swallowed early marketing. A performance built on micro-reactions and charisma was buried under layers of rubber and an oddly filtered voice mix that blurred diction and reduced presence. The characterization didn't recover. Apocalypse's worldview, destroy the weak, remake the strong, arrives as broad villain philosophy without the texture that makes Magneto compelling. We're told he's the first mutant worshipped as a god with millennia of experience. On screen, he mostly recruits, monologues, and stands still while CGI swirls. His power set reads like a rule-breaker's buffet. Matter manipulation, augmentation, sand teleportation, psychic domination, yet the script rarely establishes limits or tactics. When a character's abilities feel both infinite and vague, stakes collapse. If he can do anything, why does he do so little? Structure magnifies the problem. The film tries to launch 4 horsemen, continue Xavier or Magneto, introduce a younger class, Scott, Jean, Nightcrawler, and still give Mystique star space. That many plates leave Apocalypse underwritten. His recruitment scenes play like montage checkpoints, cool visuals, minimal persuasion, so the followers feel decorative rather than ideologically converted. By the final act, he's a VFX totem surrounded by characters the audience cares about more. Design choices also mute scale. Apocalypse should feel monumental, voice that chills, stature that dominates, iconography that reads from the back row. Instead, close-ups emphasize seams and contact lenses. Wide shots lean on green screen devastation rather than staging that communicates command. Even his most consequential act, amplifying Magneto, outsources dramatic weight to another character, turning the supposed apex villain into a plot accelerant for someone else's arc. When brief moments peek through, measured cadence, ancient certainty, you see what a streamlined design and sharper script might have unlocked. But the movie around him never hands him the crown, let alone a throne worth taking. Deadpool flavored aside, if your end-of-the-world messiah needs subtitles and a makeup team more than a motive, maybe don't call him Apocalypse. Call him aesthetic. When Marvel announced Black Panther, expectations were high, but few predicted how a cultural milestone it would become. Chadwick Boseman's casting wasn't debated. From his first appearance as T'Challa in Civil War 2016, audiences recognized the gravitas. Even in a crowded film, he stood out. His calm authority and quiet dignity gave the character weight before he even donned the suit. Then came Black Panther 2018. More than a Marvel entry, it was an event. Boseman carried T'Challa with both regal poise and deep humanity. Unlike Marvel's usual heroes, billionaire playboys, or tortured geniuses, he was a king, caught between tradition and progress. That tension grounded the film, making Wakanda feel less like a backdrop and more like a living nation with a soul. The impact reached far beyond cinema. For millions, especially in underrepresented communities, Boseman's T'Challa was more than entertainment, it was representation. Kids saw a superhero who looked like them leading the story. Adults saw African culture and identity treated with dignity. Wakanda Forever became more than a catchphrase, it became a rallying cry of pride. Boseman's performance was praised for its restraint. He conveyed power through stillness, letting quiet moments, mourning his father, debating Killmonger, speak as loudly as fight scenes. Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger stole attention at times, but that only underscored Boseman's balance. He anchored rather than competed. Then tragedy struck in 2020. The world learned Boseman had passed away after a private battle with cancer. Suddenly, every moment of quiet strength carried new weight. He had given the performance of a lifetime while enduring unimaginable pain. His death transformed Black Panther from blockbuster into legacy. Marvel itself leaned into that truth. Wakanda Forever became both sequel and tribute. Refusing to recast T'Challa, audiences didn't just lose a character, they mourned the man who embodied him. Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa endures not for box office numbers, but for the profound impact he had on people's lives. He made a superhero larger than the screen, embodying cultural pride, humanity, and sacrifice. Dark humor aside, most kings inherit a throne. Boseman carried one while secretly fighting his own war.